Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Patty Lennon, author of Make Space for Magic, among other things. Here we talk about all things magic and intuitive and life affirming and clarifying. And today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, which is I am going to be reading from my book, Make Space for Magic. This book came out a few years ago. But lately, I think it's something that we need more than ever, which is the idea that magic is available to us all the time. Magic, in my definition, is when something happens that our own human efforts didn't help create. That something appears or disappears or is made possible that was once impossible. That to me is magic. Magic is the intervention of divine forces, and we are divine within us. So this is not some external force helping us. This is us calling through our humanity, our divinity, calling through the ego, meaning making its way through ego is our divinity, which creates magic, creates miracles. So as you join, drop a comment here and let me know that you can hear me. Let me know why you're here. Maybe you just like to be read to. I remember in fifth grade where we were a little bit older than getting read to. My fifth grade teacher every week on Friday would read us a chapter from a book. And it was one of the best experiences because no one did read to us anymore. And it was just such a lovely feeling. It was such a good feeling to know that we could just sit back and listen. And that's what I want for you today. So drop a comment. Let me know where you need to make space for magic in your life or where you already are making space for magic. Maybe you are a point of inspiration for us. When I created this book, when I started this book, it was a memoir. It started out as a memoir and it became a nonfiction book. And the reason it did was that every time I wrote it, it felt incomplete. And in my mind and in my heart, that it was incomplete because so many things had happened to me. I had left banking and jumped into this career that had so much less supposedly safety in it. And I was called, like I felt spirit calling me into this new career. And I loved my banking career. And that journey was not one of the more difficult ones. That was actually one of the more fun ones. But there were times where, I went through things that tested my faith at incredible ways. But ultimately, it was the passing of my mom and going through that journey with her as she went through cancer over the course of 3 years and eventually exited our world, that I discovered something about myself while I was taking care of her. And what I found was that she struggled so much to accept help, so much to accept help. And her inability to accept my help actually made it harder on me. And while I watched her push so hard against the help she needed and want so badly to give her that help, I started to see in her those patterns in myself. And by the time we got to the end of the journey, I really wanted to share what I had learned, which was how often I had used controlling behaviors, egoic behaviors, perfectionist tendencies to block help. And that blocking also blocked all the magic in the world. And I wanted to talk about what that journey was like. But when I got to the end of writing that memoir, what I felt was what was missing was, okay, now how do you actually actualize on that? How do you actualize on the stories in the book? And so that's why it turned into a nonfiction book. So right now I am going to read you from the chapter entitled Blocking Magic, because I think there's a lot of that right now. In fact, I found it myself. And if you haven't watched my October predictions video, definitely do go back and watch them after we're done. I'll drop a link. I'll revise the description below, drop a link to it, because one of the things for the time that we're in while I'm reading this is we are right now, today is October 14th. So we are in this period from October 3rd to about the 17th, but for some people, it's going to be a little bit longer than that, where we're in this spacious place. Now, that spacious place can feel delicious, but it can also feel like a void. It can feel like every time you try and control something and put form to something, it just slips away. And that's its own form of blocking magic. So if you feel like you might be blocking some of the magic out there, I hope that this chapter helps. So we'll start. 6 years ago, I was driving home from my favorite yoga class. All right, well, it's been a little bit longer than 6 years. We'll say 10 years now. Feeling like I was on top of the world. We had just moved into a new home, our forever home. My speaking schedule was booked out a full year and my business was thriving. Our kids were at a new school they loved and everything felt right with the world. I pulled into our driveway, ready to hop out, shower, and get my day started. The universe had other plans for me. The minute I moved my left foot out the door, a searing pain surged up my back. I slowly pulled my leg back in, inch by agonizing inch. I sat there for hours and was eventually able to crawl inside. When my husband came home, he helped me into bed. I stayed there all weekend until my doctor could see me on Monday. He thought I had a herniated disc and sent me to a specialist. After a week filled with doctor's appointments and x-rays, I learned that the base of my spine was fractured, and it had been since I was 7. You may be wondering, as I did, how someone could walk around for 35 years with a broken back and have no idea that they were injured. I think we're probably all walking around with some cracks and fractures that maybe are pretty amazing that we're still standing, right? So the doctors explain the technical reason is that the injury, which occurs in a small percentage of young girls between the ages of 7 and 8, is like a ticking time bomb. If you don't know that it's there, you can live with it for years, but eventually the crack will make itself known. I think we have a lot of cracks that are making themselves known these days. Cracks in lots of structures. I think we have societal structures that are showing their cracks, and then we have cracks in our own ego, in the way we control things that just isn't working anymore, right? So if you don't know that it's there, you can live with it for years, but eventually the crack will make itself known. What I've since come to realize is that we all walk around this way on some level, with cracks in the foundation of who we are, wounds waiting like ticking time bombs to reveal themselves when we are ready to heal. I engaged Western medicine's approach to healing my back, which included varying forms of physical therapy, but I was more intrigued to understand what the injury meant on a spiritual level. For a few years, I had been playing with various types of self-healing through meditation and listening to my body. The theory being that all physical issues are symptoms of deeper emotional issues. And when the emotions are processed, the symptoms are released. Each day, I'd sit in meditation and ask my spine to tell me what it needed me to know. The process helped me clear colds, sinus infections, and varying minor issues in the past. I was curious to see what would show up here. But each day, my questioning was only met with a brick wall of silence. Finally, one day I asked a different question. What happened when I was 7 to cause this fracture? Immediately, I heard a voice answer, "You stopped flying." Suddenly, I saw myself as a young girl of 5, maybe 6, standing on the edge of a staircase, looking down, and I could see my little toes wrapped around the edge of the top step. I'm not nervous or scared. I'm poised, ready for flight. It is so clear to me, as clear now as it was completely unclear moments ago. This is my house, the house I grew up in, the dark wood railing, the white spindles, the wallpaper from my childhood. The house is dark and quiet. It's the middle of the night. The moonlight pours in the window behind me. I'm standing on the landing and can almost feel the night air calling me. I know this place. I've been here many times before. I can fly and I'm getting ready to take off. I do this at night because grown-ups can't see. It's not that they wouldn't understand or they tried to stop me. It's more that when I fly, I'm a part of another life altogether, one that does not involve them. I already know what comes next. I want to brace for it, but I know I don't have to. So I sit calmly and I wait. I wait for this little girl version of me to be ready. She is. I bend my legs, push off, and fly. I am literally freaking flying. Down the stairs, out the front door, I swoop and I soar. Is this real? I shared this story with a group of clients recently, and their immediate question was that real? Could you really fly? The answer is I don't know. It certainly feels as real as any other memory I've ever experienced. I told them it wasn't that important whether it was real or not. What matters is that as a small child, I felt that I could fly, and one day I just stopped. Everyone is born knowing how to fly. We are born believing in limitless possibilities, and then we are taught fear. We are taught that flying is dangerous. We are taught that the ground is safe. What we can touch and feel is what we should believe in. These messages create real life fractures inside of us because they counter what we know is fundamentally true. They break our understanding of how powerful we are and how fully the universe supports our path. We are broken by the grown-ups in our lives who have nothing but our best interests at heart. They just want us to be safe, and they are simply passing on their own inherited fears and fractures. Our grown-ups were taught that the world is not safe, that if something is going to happen, they have to make it happen. They were taught there is no magic, there is no flying, and believing in it is unsafe. We learn to shrink our hopes and dreams to fit within what we can control and create. With our own human limitations, we keep the dreams we pursue small so that we can guarantee success for ourselves. We limit ourselves by what we know we can accomplish because we fear the judgment and rejection of others. And all these fears stem from a belief that we are not enough. So if you're listening and you're in a place where you can comment, I'm curious, does this resonate? Do you feel this? Do you sense this in your own life right now? Because I think this is even bigger for us than it has ever been. This tension between believing, being irresponsible, or being the only way forward. We are taught not enoughness in 1,000 different ways, spoken and unspoken. This not enoughness makes the world feel unsafe, and we are taught to focus on filling up the not enoughness rather than reaching for the everything we were promised by our divine parent at birth. Yes, I see those of you listening, you are resonating. I'm reading this and needing to hear it myself as well. Amazing. Amazing. The slow, steady beat of not enoughness motivated everything I did as a child. In fact, until the memory of flying spontaneously dropped in, I could not recall a single time as a child I had felt that free and limitless. And yet I must have. Looking back at it all, I can see it was simply that I felt how much not enoughness existed in my parents, and I wanted to fill it up for them. Because I never could, I always was operating at not enough. I was the perfect daughter as much as I had the power to be. I was great at school, I helped around the house, I didn't talk back, and I tried to ask for as little as possible. Without knowing it, I understood that money had a lot to do with enoughness, and therefore its absence created not enoughness. Having worked with hundreds of women one-on-one and thousands from stages, I can tell you that the relationship between money and the space for magic is a strong one. It doesn't matter if there was a lot of money or little money in your home growing up. It was the relationship to what money meant in your childhood home that often removed any space for magic. In school, I remember working on a short story, The Rocking Horse Winner by D.H. Lawrence. The story is about a family who lived beyond their means and the feeling that there was never enough felt to the point that the children said they heard the house whisper, "There must be more money." The teacher asked us questions about the story, and I remember her being so thrilled with my answer. I had connected the dots. The house wasn't actually whispering, but the children could feel their parents' feelings and interpreted them as the house whispering. That memory stands out to me because I was very young and none of the other students seemed to understand what I saw in that story. So I felt special. And the teacher was clearly beside herself with joy that I had the insight. So I really felt special. At the time, I would have told you the story had nothing to do with my family. My parents never lived beyond their means. In fact, as Depression era kids, they were just the opposite, always conservative in their spending. But that whisper, my little self recognized that whisper. Yeah, I hear, Eileen, I see you. I remember being taught to play small, don't draw attention, give it to the younger siblings. Yes, yes. All these little whispers, right? So I think ours sounded more like there isn't enough money, and my little self translated that feeling to mean there isn't enough me. I have seen this same whisper play out in households of every economic persuasion. A few years ago, as part of an exercise to earn a Girl Scout badge, I asked each child in my daughter's Girl Scout troop who they wanted to become when they were older. I very specifically did not ask them what they wanted to do when they got older. Even so, one girl whose family seemed to make a significant income said, "I want to become someone who makes $6 million." When I asked her why, she said, $6 million is how much money we need before my mom can slow down. It is definitely not just a million. I'm remembering that. It's been a while since I thought about that story. I know her parents. They are good people. They love their kids. And they work hard to give them every opportunity in the world. Their daughter has a generous heart. She is always the first to volunteer her allowance to help others. They have a beautiful home and cars and go on wonderful vacations. But even in the midst of so much abundance, somehow she heard the whisper of not enough. Although money is often the thing we attach to not enough, it shows up in lots of other ways. It can be in relationships, especially romantic relationships or other forms of material wealth, like homes, experiences, or professional success. Underneath this drive to get more money, a romantic partner, a different home, or a particular job or career is really the drive to feel safe. It's a belief that something outside ourselves has the power to make us safe, when in reality, we are safe right now. And when we start to believe that, we create space for magic. Yeah, with heavy loads of responsibility, we forget to continue to dream and fly. Amen, sister. Amen. This feeling of not enough is what keeps most people from accessing the magic that is readily available to them. We believe some people are more lucky, have more advantages, are set up for success, when really what we are saying is that some people seem to be more enough than us. For me, enoughness was tied directly to my ability to make people around me happier, especially my mother and father. So when something I did directly or indirectly seemed to cause them any type of pain or burden, I felt like I had failed. My client, Wendy, had a similar experience growing up. She learned from a young age that she was good when she was supporting other people and bad when she needed anything. She was never told this directly. She had good, loving parents just like I did. But like me, she felt the weight of the burdens her parents carried and wanted nothing more than to lessen those burdens and avoid adding to them. Yeah, that story of 6 million wishes, right? When I met Wendy, she was overworked, overstressed, corporate achiever. Pre-marriage, pre-kids, achieving at a level that felt safe to her was easy. She was a woman who made things happen. But as she got older and the responsibilities that came with aging parents, marriage, and motherhood added to her load, She felt she was constantly scrambling to succeed in a way that she wanted to, especially in motherhood. When she realized she needed to leave the corporate world and venture out on her own in order to find the balance she so desperately wanted, she hit an internal block after internal block. Even though she was looking to make a change for the sake of the other people she loved, the choices she needed to make to create that change also felt selfish. Eventually, she learned to allow and help from the divine, and the outcome was positively magical. She launched a business and created 250,000 in revenue in the first few months, and she found a way to spend the time she wanted with her daughter and be present in her life the way she desired. But the road there was definitely had bumps. The biggest lesson she had to unlearn was that she didn't always have to be okay. She didn't always have to be the cheerleader, and it was okay to need help. She accepted that she was drained from years of juggling a demanding career and motherhood. She agreed to schedule time off, even though her mind told her to work on her business nonstop until it was successful. She allowed her daughter to make choices on how she spent her time rather than trying to micromanage her through a pandemic. She initially had no proof that these changes would create the positive outcome she desired, but she agreed to take the leap of faith and trust her body's need for rest and her daughter's ability to choose for herself. By opening up to the possibility that her desires could be met even when she rested and released control, she released the blocks to magic she'd been holding. Receiving is a skill we need to hone. Amen, it is. So, that is the end of that chapter. And something came to mind about this because, you know, learning how to make space for magic isn't a one and done experience. Even as I read this, I'm hearing things I needed to hear this week. It was, this is the journey, right? This is the journey. We incarnate into these human forms with egos that are social experiment that we call Earth teaches us that what we can touch, I can touch this and I can touch this desk and I can touch this book so we can believe in it, right? But the things we can't touch, those aren't safe. And the complete opposite is true, right? Learning what comes from here, following inspired action, that is what creates those big miracles. And then trusting beyond what it is that we're not inspired to do. And what I'm talking about is learning to rest, learning to be still, learning patience. All these things are the pathway, right? They take us right up to the door. But so many times we're looking in the wrong direction that we don't even see the door we're meant to go through that's right in front of us. So we have a comment. I remember being told in parochial school, first grade, that you only live once. I knew that wasn't true, but you don't bring attention to yourself. So the words never left my mouth, not even at home. Yes. Yes, right? It's just so hard to be little. It's so hard to be little. And then we grow up and then we've got those little cracks. I do, for any of you who want to get the book, I'm just going to drop this up here. I'm streaming from StreamYard, which makes it now possible for us to drop these little QR codes in the corner so you can use your screen to get a link to purchase the book if you did want to get your own copy of Make Space for Magic. I'm going to leave that up there. But I wanted to flip to the end of the book because when I wrote this, I always wondered if I would be okay with the way the book ended. So at the end of the book, I had talked about a story with my daughter and what she was learning and how she was teaching me in the process. And I was finishing the revision of this book through the pandemic, and many of her friends had struggled. They had struggled with mental health challenges and other challenges. And she had said to me, I feel guilty because I'm so okay. I wish we could be together, but I'm good. She was talking about her friends. Really, really good, Mom. I know I'm this okay because I have the mom that I have. And that was important to me because um, it reminded me that when we heal something, we heal it 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. She was young though. She was in middle school. She was in 6th grade at the time. And as I wrapped up the book with that message, I was wondering, is I knew that's not where her story would end. She was good, but there was a whole bunch of life that still would come. And she had her journeys. She had her journeys, and those are her stories to tell. But fast forward, and where I'm going with this is a reminder that besides the fact that we are healing for 7 generations forward and 7 generations back, our ancestors did the same. And it can be so easy to feel the weight of the wounds we've inherited from our ancestors, but they've given us so much as well. So, just last year, my daughter was graduating from high school. She was in her senior year. And it came time for her senior night game, and she was the captain of her team. And she had worked really hard to raise the energy of the people on the team and really bring cohesion to that team. And then the morning came for her senior night game. It was a Monday. And that Sunday, she had gotten sick, and there had been a virus going around. And she had had a fever the day before. And that morning she woke up and she said, I don't think I can go to school. Now, she is not a kid that takes many sick days. And she knew that if she didn't go to school, she wouldn't play in her senior night game, which if you don't have kids in sports, it's a big deal. And it was a particularly big deal because she had worked hard to become great at this sport, and she didn't start out that way. And I said, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, are you okay with this? That you're going to like lose out on this thing?" Hopefully, I didn't use that particular language, but I was hurting for her so much. And she said, "Mom, I have to trust. If this is where God put me and this virus is in me right now, for whatever reason, that is the path." And she was so clear. She was so clear. There was not an ounce of like faking it till you make it. Like, as an adult, I will say, I trust spirit, even when I don't always trust spirit. Hers was grounded and it was authentic. And I was in awe because this was something she had been looking forward to so much. And I was like, I'm just so, you just show me so much. And I could feel within me healing happening as she held the medicine, She had healed it, and I could feel it healed within me. P.S. The athletic director did a beautiful thing, and he said, "I don't feel good about her not being on the field. Is she okay?" Now, this had been a virus that had been going around, and she actually was okay. And so she showed up. It had gone out of her system. Later that day, she showed up to help decorate for senior night. Even though she couldn't play, she said she was going to be there to cheer her team on. And this is, if you don't have a kid in a sport, this is also a big night because the entire senior team takes the field. So even kids who maybe weren't always going on the field first and maybe didn't get a lot of playing time, This will be the last time that those kids that had been together through it all would be playing together on the field. And she said, I'm going to cheer them on. And the athletic director said, just, promise me she's safe to play. And I did. And I got the note from the doctor who cleared her, and she got to play that night. And so it all worked out. And I was telling people that story afterwards, like the healing that she had given me, the reminder that it's not all on our shoulders to heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. There's those generations there are helping us too. And someone said to me, yeah, but she was able to be who she was because of who you were. And that really healed me, because that told me that although I have inherited some wounds from my parents, from my ancestors down the lines, I have inherited so much more strength and so much more courage, and so have you. Each of us has. And if you can really anchor in how much you're not just got the support of your ancestors, but you have so many gifts within you, gifts that haven't even been realized yet, strength and wisdom that was passed down to you that has yet to take full birth into this world. And you didn't have to do one thing for it. Your ancestors did all the work. They did all the work, and they handed you this gift that is your potential. I see the comment, my daughter is profound. You know what? She is. Every kid, they bring so much wisdom to the table. So much wisdom to the table. If you do not have your own kids and you can get in a room with someone who's under the age of 18, talk to them, because man, this is a smart generation, smart 2 generations we've got coming up the rear on our humanity. And, my son, was telling me the story about him listening to a podcast host or a radio host that, like, a lot of people think is not a good person. So I'm not gonna go into who it is. My son likes the edgy stuff. He likes to hear what everyone's saying. And then in the process of that show, they brought on a guest. And he said the guest was talking about the fact that with every decision we make, we create 2 paths. I mean, he was telling me this 2 years ago, before I started talking about jumping timelines and all this stuff. And he says every time that if you decide to take a step forward in this direction, like literally just, this is how he was describing to me, you put your foot out in this direction and that creates one lifetime. But if you don't, or you put it in that direction, that creates a completely different pathway, right? And he said, Mom, every single night I go to bed, I think about that. That is what he's thinking about. That is what he's thinking about. I don't know what I was thinking about as a teenager, and I've never been a teenage boy, so I definitely don't know what that's like. But man, these little people. So that concludes our reading. I'm just curious, does anyone have any questions for me? And you can get the book at major retailers. You can also go to, oh, and hey, while you're here, please subscribe. I forgot to mention that. Please subscribe. We'll be doing more fun pop-up stuff. Subscribe below. And if you want to get the book, you can go to the book page. It is pattylennon.com. Make space for magic. There's the link, but you can use that QR code in the corner as well. I think it's worth a read. I really do. When you do get that in the first, probably the first 60% of the book is memoir. So it's mostly storytelling. But then once you get to the later parts of the book, it's a step by step on steps you can take to open up to it. Elizabeth highly recommends the book. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you loved it. I'm going to call you Jax because your handle is Amusing Jax. Maybe I know you by a different name, but thank you. Thank you. I would love it. And if you have questions for me, things you want to talk about, how to make space for magic, and you're here, you're watching this on, when we're not live anymore, drop a comment below. Let me know, what is your question? I would love to answer it. Absolutely would love to answer it. And this is my passion, truly. This is my passion. And we teach what we need to know, right? We teach what we need to know. I am learning how to make space for magic as much as I'm teaching how to make space for magic. Barb, you're looking forward to reading it again. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think if you read it once, read it again, because I think it'll read differently. It'll read differently in the time that we're in. And I have been given a lot of signals. No, I have not gotten clearance of offering any specifics about what is coming next. There definitely will be more when my November predictions video come out. There'll be more concrete information. But I have been shown that illusions are going to come crashing down very soon. And when we say illusions, we talk about the things that keep us from understanding where magic is and where power is. And authentic power is really going to start emerging in wonderful and beautiful ways. And when you read my book and follow the steps in the back, you'll be even more prepared to step through that door where magic lives. Oh, you can hardly wait to read. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed story time. I know I love being read too, so I hope you did as well. And if there's something I can do that will add joy to your life, please, by all means, tell me what it is. Stephanie says, I always kind of shut down when ancestors are mentioned, as I do not feel a connection to my family lineage. I am the only child and I am childless by choice. How do I work with ancestor energy? That is such a beautiful question, Stephanie. So the first thing is to understand it's 7 generations back. And so perhaps there is an ancestor that's farther back that will feel more grounded for you. And maybe the thing to think about is there a country, is there a land that calls to you that's other than the one that you're standing on, right? For me, I'm pure Irish, so this is pretty easy, but not everyone is, most people have multiple ethnicities within their bloodline. But I can feel myself called back to Ireland. So if you feel yourself called to a country, even if your ancestors haven't lived there for generations, just visualize that and ask for the ancestor that did live there, that supported you and loved you, to show themselves to you. As for the generations going forward, it's not just the children you produce, it's the children that any of your ancestors, generations that have been produced from your ancestors. That being said, if you don't connect to your DNA line, or you don't, let's say your bio parents are different than the parents that raised you, which line does feel true for you? And if neither of those, perhaps it's a past lifeline. And so call on the ancestor that is available to you, that is ready, willing, and able to love you and care for you and support you right now. I'm so glad you're so glad you didn't have your makeup on. Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Tears are my trophies. I just did a live author talk at a bookshop on Friday, which is what inspired me to come on here because I said, well, most people in my audience are going to make it to New Milford, Connecticut. And I have told the stories in this book so many times from so many stages, and yet I found myself tearing up again, just like I did here today. Lenora, time to read it again. Ah, yes, yes. And Stephanie, that helped. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Tears are my trophies. And the reason is not because I like to see anyone cry, because I always would want to see joy and happiness and excitement. But tears are the moment where your soul's truth meets fresh air. That's what I think. That's when something has hit your soul, that is when the tears emerge. I think of that, when I start to tear up with that one story, I think of that young girl in that Girl Scout troop, and it's been years since I saw her because I wrote that story, a bunch of years ago. And I just think just what a sweet, sweet soul she is. And that moment when she had shared that with me, and there was just no deterring her from it. I had reworked the questions to try and get underneath with her, like who she saw herself as being, but this was her, her single-mindedness. And this is oftentimes what society single-mindedness does to us. So be multi-minded, right? Be multi-minded right now. And if you're feeling a little amorphous right now, you can't quite touch what comes next for you. That was we just did a survey with our community, and that came up a lot. I just want to remind you that's part of this time that we're in, this period of October 3rd-ish to October 17th-ish, not exact. So be patient with yourself. There's going to be a more grounded feeling of the ability to start to work with some of the seeds of potentiality in your life very soon. I mean, definitely within the next 2 weeks. Born and raised in the US, while on a trip to Delphi, Greece, I broke out in tears. I knew I'd been there in past life. Ooh, I love it. I love that fun stuff. That is super cool. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you are so welcome. You are so welcome. All right, I'm going to give the comments just one more moment because I know there's just a slight delay between when you type and when I read, and then I will end our time together and send you off with love. Just a reminder, I do put a new video here every week. Fridays at 3:30. So if you are looking for some new content, just know that will be coming. But the best way to know when new content is available is to make sure you've subscribed. So be sure to do that. All right, everyone. Make space for magic.